Now here's what we're doing. Instead of going this way, we're going this way. And the reason we're going this way is because that point won't move. This point will move.
Okay.
You follow me?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you understand.
Yeah, you want a U basically.
Right. This is yours. Just gotta
Yeah, don't
watch your footing in here.
Well, there she is sitting on the truck. Not 100% squared up, it's just loosely sat on there. Gonna go ahead and pull her back in the shop here and get her squared up and do some more work. Got quite a bit to do, but hopefully we've done everything we need to do correctly and we don't have to redo a bunch of stuff. But I guess we're about to find out, huh? Loosen that up just a little bit. We're gonna go check how the bed looks as far as body alignment. All right, driver's side bed to cab. It's like 1.25 inches roughly. Actually, let's measure down here so we are the same. It's 1.5 inches on that side. Let's go to the passenger side here. Tight squeeze now. What do we got going on here? Ah, boy, I don't know, folks. I think for just being some dumb old farmer, I think I did all right. I think it lines up pretty good. Got all 6 bed bolts in that we currently have mounts for. So being that this was a 6-foot bed and not an 8-foot bed, obviously we've done an extensive amount of framework here. We have moved the rear axle 20 inches further back than what it was originally. We have lengthened the frame 20 inches. The factory frame sections that was on this truck only had 6 bed bolts. We now have 8 bed bolts. So to accommodate that, we're gonna have one more bed mount to add to this. Maybe we can look through here. Yeah, kinda. Not really. I'll hop under here. Don't mind the emergency brake cable that's hanging there that's cut off because it's junk. If you look up through There, you can see that bolt right there. Well, the hole for the bolt, I should say. So that is where we need to add a mount for a bed bolt. So that's why I've left all that open. And I didn't box anything in up there, was to accommodate for that. You can see right about here is where our splice is that we've added in here. We've actually made all new frame rails, cleared out the back end of this truck, transferred over the factory cross member that holds the spare tire, winch, and all that fun stuff in there. We not only did we slide over the existing factory frame and weld in a radius weld, we then fish plated it on top. There's a radius weld on both ends and a full circular weld in the center, along with the linear top and bottom welds done. There is about 8 feet of weld per side connecting this frame. So there's a total of 16 feet of weld to make this transition. And we did that to ensure that this thing is good and stout and not going to have a failure point. Because the last thing I want to do is have my gooseneck hitch that's going to be right about there above the center pumpkin. Put so much stress on here that this separates. It's not going to separate. This is beyond overbuilt, I believe. We have overbuilt our spring hangers. There's still a little bit more weld work to do here. This was all just welded enough to have the truck sit under its own weight, roll out the door, get turned around, get the bed set on it. We're going to bring it back in here like we've done now. We've mounted our bed bolts. Now we are going to mount our gooseneck hitch in place because I'm not 100% sure what's going to happen here. So my gooseneck setup I have is a kit, is a B&W turnover ball setup. And, well, it's designed for factory frame rails, and we are no longer factory frame rails. I mean, we are pretty near close to factory frame rail, but we are slightly larger in diameter because we are quarter wall thickness versus eighth wall thickness. So I don't know if that will pose an issue or not with the B&W setup. If it does, we're just going to weld it because, well, we've done enough welding in here. I think we're pretty good on welding. I think it wouldn't be a big deal to have to burn it in, but it would be nice for it to be removable for the sake of service and all that fun stuff if we ever had to take it off and change it because something happened, it got tweaked or whatever. Shouldn't, because they're ready to haul 30,000 pounds, and, well, that's all we're going to haul with this. So, if that. So, yeah. We are going to grab our kit and start deciphering how that goes in here. It's been a minute since I installed one of them. I installed one on my single cab. So we're going to see how that shakes out here. This is obviously quite different because, well, we've done some extensive work here. Biggest thing I can tell you wholesale is speed is not your friend. Sometimes when they break through, you got to have a bit of a rip with them to get them to finish. But for the most part, just go slow. Your wrist will thank you later. Okay, well, apparently that's a job for a screwdriver, not a pocket knife. So. Well, I don't know where we filmed last. Last, I think we had the truck in here with the bed on. The reason we had the bed on was so that we could check for our gooseneck hitch that we have underneath there in them boxes. Don't mind the dirt. Anyways, to make sure that what we did is not going to conflict with anything, and it is not. They're going to work just like they're intended to from B&W. Then the next thing was we needed to make our rearmost front bed mounts. So 8-foot beds have 8 bolts, 6-foot beds have 6 bolts, so I guess it's a bolt per foot, I guess. Anyways, so that's a factory mount. These are holes that we drilled in place, measuring off of this frame, plus the bed outside, plus the factory frame rail. We come up with those dimensions, and the bed bolted on perfectly. All my bolt holes lined up. I mean, it was just really nice. I guess I did a really good job. I guess I have a brain somewhat. But anyways, so got everything kind of finished welded here. Got our rear cross member transferred over. I'm sure we've talked about that before, but this is the factory spare tire cross member. Transferred over the factory rear spring hangers. The front spring hangers we fabricated out of 1/4-inch plate, you know, the good old cardboard aided design. Transferred over the bump stops for the axle, transferred over the exhaust hangers, transferred over the shock mount. Pretty much basically recreated anything that was factory using factory components, or, you know, if we made new, we used obviously some geometry and some math and stuff like that to make sure we did it according to how it's supposed to be made. So I think this thing's pretty well good to go. Spent quite a bit of time the past several days wire wheeling, needle scaling, all that fun stuff laying underneath this truck. It was not a good time, but we got it done. Got the new emergency brake cables, or park brake cables, whatever you'd like to call them. That was a bit of a hoot. Don't go to AutoZone for their park brake cables, because they're for a 140-inch wheelbase, and 4th gen trucks do not have a 140-inch wheelbase. Not even the single cab outside has 140. It's 149 on the single cab. Don't ask me why they think those fit this. That's a whole thing. We're going to have an argument with AutoZone because they didn't refund my money. That's a good time, but we're not going to get into that right now. Moral story, Napa or dealer. I knew that, but it was right down the road. Anyways, had to get the brake hose section that is factory for a 2014 axle, because this is a 2014 axle, this is a 2012 truck, so we had a little bit of MacGyver here to do. Not really, I mean, we did it properly, but I'm just saying it was something we had to figure out. So we have 2014 brake lines on the rear axle, and then we have the 2014 brake hose that goes from the center pumpkin up to the frame rail. And we have a little bit of brake line we had to add in here. This is a Union. These are flared. It worked out pretty nice. Bennett to look factory. Got all the little isolators in place. I split a section of fuel hose and put it over here because I'm just worried that this might run into the frame rail and rub a hole in it, and I don't want to have a loss on my brakes because of something I did. So everything's plumbed. Used the old Mighty Vac to bleed the brakes single-handedly. That worked out pretty nice, actually. I've had that tool for probably 15 years, and I've used it 3 times. Great purchase. It worked out good this time because it was on my own. Now what we're kind of delving into now is the wiring harness side of things. Guys say that you can straighten this harness out and have plenty enough wire to make it. Well, yeah, you might have your taillight section for that side and your taillight section for this side. Now, none of this is routed how it's supposed to be. It's just laying on top right now. What you do not have, problem. This is your trailer brake harness. This is your license plate lights. This is your park brake sensors. All the stuff that's on the back half of this truck on the bumper cannot be reached. We've got several options here to run through. I guess, in my opinion, the correct way of doing this is to add whatever length of wire you need into the harness. Now, there's 30 wires in that harness. This is going to be a good time. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be fun, but it needs done. So I've got several options here. These are new to me, never used these. These are solder seal wire connectors, and these things work. There is a low temp solder inside of them. That's that center gray piece there, if my finger will get out of the way. And what happens is you'll use the old Chinese heat gun, and you heat it up, and you can see that low temp solder melts. Then you have shrink wrap built into this. You also have these little sealing rings. Those all melt together and seal this up. Now, theoretically, this is waterproof and all that fun stuff now, and bound by low temp solder. Then you have, we'll go to the opposite end of the spectrum here. You have the standard butt connectors that are crimp style connectors that you crimp with a crimping tool. Southwire makes a really nice tool. I have that. If you would have asked me 10 years ago what I think of crimp style connectors, I'd have told you they're horse shit and junk. Don't ever buy them. After buying that crimping tool, I think I can do a better job with a crimping connector than most people can do soldering. Anyways, so that's what's on here. This is a standard crimp type connector. Now, I didn't use the nice Southwire one. I used the old cheap Irwin on this one, so we're going to see. You'll get into that here in a second. But anyways, crimp this, shrunk it. Now, the old tried and true, soldered together, normal situation. So what we're about to do here, and put my stuff away so I don't lose it. So we're going to take this piece of junk here. We're going to put it in that there Wilton machinist vise, because the Wilton bash is a piece of garbage. Don't ever buy it. We're going to put this in this vise, and we're going to yank on it with all of our might. And whichever one of these fails last is going to be the method that we use. First to fail was standard solder, which I figured as much. This is the butt type crimp connector now. That ain't very impressive. But like I said, we use the El Cheapo crimper. We might redo that in a second with the good crimper. Now, the low temp solder crimp.
They all come apart.
They all come apart, but going by the old
You should have had the scales in
butt dyno,
You should have
this one was the hardest so far.
put it, okay.
Now,
Say if you had a scales, you could have rated it in pounds of force required to fail.
all right, crimped it together with the good crimper. You can see, I mean, anybody with common knowledge is going to be able to tell you. You see the leverage point on here? You just don't have it. Also look at how aggressive this is. There's really not much crimp there. I mean, maybe for Harry the homeowner. You can see the leverage here. Your crimp point's clear right here on the end. And you can see how aggressive that crimp is. These by far, I think, are probably going to stump everything. So we put that together, shrunk the shrink on it just to, you know, have everything fair. Now the heater's going to kick on. Now grab this and give her a rip.
Break the wire.
And we actually broke the wire on that.
That's a good crimp.
So everything else,
This will clear.
well, I can't get this completely apart obviously, but I don't see any wire protruding. So I don't know if the wire failed on this one too. I guess let's find out. Crimp this in here, or stash this in here. Yeah, right, can't do that by hand. Yeah, the wire is failing on that too. You can see where it's pulled it apart. I'm gonna try that again real quick with the crimp connector that we used the south wire on. Same deal, wire failed. The crimp held. You can see the bits of wire sticking out of the crimp. So in this situation, the wire is the weak component, the crimp connection is not. And I'm leaning towards thinking the solder situation is the same way. I can't obviously see down in there. You can't, but there's wire down inside that hole, still where the solder joint was. I'm not going to be able to do this, I don't think. See if I can pull the solder out of here. Yeah, so the wire is still in there. You can see that copper coloring. That's the wire. So both the crimp connector using the south wire and the low temp solder are better than just normal wire twisted together and soldered, because that pulled right apart. And this crimper on the Irwin pliers, vice grip pliers, whatever you'd like to call it, vice grips made by Irwin, are junk and inferior compared to south wire. So I guess it's a matter of what we prefer. Do we prefer doing a whole bunch of shrink with low solder, or do we prefer crimp with shrink? Wiring has never been my area that I enjoy to do. Done enough of it here past decade, it seems. God knows, in houses and buildings and shops. Yeah. Not a certified electrician, I know enough to be dangerous. That's a term my dad and I like to use.
Well, folks, it's been a minute since I had a video edited and put up. I've been just slam-packed busy working on this thing here. Actually kind of finishing up the final stages here, hopefully this week here, and have this thing back on the road. Just been crazy busy between farm work and shop work and family stuff and stuff like that. I've just been slam-packed busy. Haven't had time to edit. I have a boatload of stuff recorded that needs edited. Unfortunately, it's going to take me a minute to get through all that. But ending out this video here, I wanted to do a little bit of a thing talking about a company I've recently been doing some business with, Iron Lace. All the stuff I do in this shop, heavy metal fabrication and stuff like that, farming and things like that, you're in a pretty harsh environment to where things like boot laces and boots and stuff like that tend to have a rough life, to say the least. I have tried every different variant of boot there is, every different variant of lace there is, and I have landed where I've landed on what I have because it's what I like and price point. My boots are nothing fancy. These are just the Herman Survivor piece of junk things from Walmart because, well, when boots only last 6 months, no matter what brand you buy, that's what you stick with. But the biggest thing I have a problem with is laces, and it doesn't matter what boot brand you have, laces seem to just die in my operation. A lot of that being, you see all the cutting and welding and fabricating we do. Well, what's the one place that you don't necessarily have any protection? Right there. Where's all that stuff land? You can actually see the tongues of these boots are chewed up pretty bad. These are Iron Lace laces. Now, I have not found anything to hold up to what I do in my line of work very well. These things right here, I will swear by these things. I am not sponsored by them. I actually reached out to them after I had warranted a set of laces because they failed over time. And these are lifetime guarantee. These are indestructible, I believe. Yeah, unbreakable. I'm sorry, unbreakable. I think they have indestructible ones too. No, I guess I only have the unbreakable ones. Anyways, I reached out to them and told them, hey guys, I have a channel and you know, I don't rep for anybody and I don't like to rep for people that I don't necessarily believe in their product and stuff like that. And Tom, the VP of Sales and Operations, sent me some stuff here, a little care package. I'm not sponsored by them. Wouldn't mind it, but I'm not. But they sent me some boot laces here. I got a couple pair I'm going to give out to my buddies. I gave my dad a pair. My dad really likes them. I obviously have my warranted out pair on my boots now that, well, they've been on my boots for probably about a month now. I've just been crazy busy. They sent me a hoodie, sent me a nice hat here because I needed a hat, and sent me a little, I guess I'll use this as a camera gear bag. But yeah, I just wanted to give them a little shout out. They make a nice product. These things are pretty tough. Like I said, I have had every different variant there is of boot lace to have. And these things are a great price point. They're really cheap, they're durable, and they have a lifetime guarantee. So just want to give them a little shout out for a great product they have here, and thank Tom for sending me some apparel here. I got a hoodie and a hat and a couple beer koozies and stuff like that. So just want to give him a shout out and a thanks for that. And yeah, if you guys need boot laces, check these things out. They're pretty nice, lifetime guaranteed right there. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and end out this video here. I don't know what all's been thrown into it yet because I haven't edited it yet because, like I said, I've been busy. Been kind of hammering this thing out. This is kind of, I guess, a sneak peek. You probably actually shouldn't even be able to see this, but we got her back on the ground, got everything on. I've wet sanded, buffed, and polished this thing out, which has been quite the project. But you guys will have to stay tuned to see that, and hopefully I catch you guys on the next one. I hope you enjoyed this, and God bless. We'll see you on the next one.